Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for tuning in today. I'm Mark Ivano, the Executive Director of Republicans for National Renewal. I oversee the running of the organization on a day-to-day basis. For those of you that are not familiar with our organization, I'll give a quick introduction to who we are and what we do before we get to our exciting event today. Republicans for National Renewal is a fairly new political nonprofit dedicated to transforming the Republican Party into a national populist party that's committed to enacting the groundbreaking agenda that won Trump the presidency in 2016. We want to do this by encouraging people to participate in their local party institutions and run for party office, with the goal of taking the party over from the grassroots level up. We also want to encourage people to push their elected officials on core issues like immigration, trade, big tech, infrastructure, staying out of endless wars, in order to shift the party policy in the president's direction. One of the areas we're working on currently is building an advocacy tool to compile bills that pertain to making America more economically independent from China, and that'll be releasing later this month. We're also set to be releasing a guide to participating in the Republican Party at a local level for those who are new to this, because we understand that many existing GOP institutions try to deliberately exclude new people in order to better maintain control. And so we're very thankful to our growing coalition of over 40 local GOP, college Republican, young Republican, and teenage Republican groups, many of whom are joining us today in the audience. For information on all that, we definitely encourage you to like our Facebook page, follow us on Twitter at RN Renewal. And in addition, I'd like to quickly plug a scorecard of Republican members of the US House on our website, which is rnrenewal.org, to help people determine which members are most faithful to the populist national conservative agenda. As you know, many politicians don't always tell the truth. So our scorecard helps show which representatives are just giving lip service, saying they support the Trump agenda, and then either not voting completely in line or sometimes voting against his agenda. And so we're basically, in the scorecard, we're showing which politicians are putting words into action when they vote. And so I recommend you all check it out and see how your current representative scored. For today's event, we're going to be having Foreign Minister Peter Szijjarto, who will discuss the similarities between the globalist-funded unrest in the United States and what happened in Hungary, as well as Hungary's success on immigration and protecting Christians. And with that, I'll now hand it off to One American News Network anchor, Mr. Jack Posobiec, who will be our guest hosting the session, and he can give a little more information about himself and how you can follow him on social media. And so thank you all again for joining, and I hope you enjoy.
Mark, thanks so much for having me on today. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here on the event, and also just like to say thank you to everybody that's joining in. Today, of course, it's a Saturday, it's a weekend. I'm sure there's lots of things that everybody else would rather be doing, but this is a very important topic as we go, of course, here in the United States into the last turn of the election. So a little bit about myself, former Navy intelligence officer, then got out of the service, came over to One American News, started getting involved in really independent media here. I've reported from the White House, reported from all around the world with One America, and we try to really kind of show what an independent voice can do from kind of outside the mainstream media system. But I really wanted to bring in and introduce as well now Peter Szijjarto. So he is the Foreign Minister of Hungary. We're very honored to have him on. I've interviewed Foreign Minister Szijjarto several times for the One American News Network since he's been gracious enough to come by the One American News system, studio here in Washington, D.C. And it's really great to be able to talk to him now in this format, which is a little bit longer than sort of the quick daily news hits that we were able to do. So, Foreign Minister.
Good afternoon, and I really appreciate the invitation. I'm really honored to be your guest now, and I am able to speak to young Republicans whom we trust a lot to help the president to win the election and stay in office.
Well, so to get started, since we are talking to kind of the young Republicans, younger Republicans type groups, we have a lot of those in the audience today. Can you tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into government, and then really what your role is in the Hungarian government?
Look, I was involved in the youth organization of my party. My party is called Fidesz. Fidesz is a Latin word which means faith, trust. And this party was the system-changing party back at the end of the 80s and the beginning of the 90s. I'm not quite sure everybody knows, but Hungary was occupied by the Soviet communists until 1990. And in the 80s, my party, Fidesz, was the first youth organization which started to fight against the communists and was fighting for freedom and liberty and sovereignty of the country. And the current prime minister, who is the party president, he was the first Hungarian politician to urge the Soviet troops to leave the country openly on a big demonstration. You know, since 1990, we are enjoying freedom and sovereignty. We are free. We have been liberated. We liberated ourselves from the communists. And since 1990, Hungary is a parliamentary democracy. I've been a member of the parliament since 2002. At that time, I was the youngest by the age of 23. Now I'm not among the youngest ones. But from 2006, I'm working together closely with the current prime minister. I served as chief of staff of him. I served as a spokesman of him. And then from 2014 onwards, September 2014, I've been the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Trade of the country, which is a huge honor, of course, because I couldn't imagine a more beautiful job than representing my country all around the world. Our party, Fidesz, is a Christian democratic party, is a party on the right side of the political landscape, could be considered as a patriotic party, a party for which national interest is number one, and a party which is brave enough to go against the international liberal mainstream, a party which is free of political correctness and hypocrisy. And maybe this is the reason why members of our party feel a very significant sympathy towards your president.
Now, speaking of which, so you mentioned how you were involved since early time 2002, then also 2014, you started serving. Now you've been able then to serve in this capacity under, in a sense, two separate U.S. administrations, not under, but in dealing with two separate U.S. administrations. So you saw how it was prior to Trump, and you're seeing how the U.S.-Hungary relationship is now. So can you tell me, how have relations been between U.S. and Hungary in that time? Do you think they're better now? They've improved, decreased? What is your opinion?
Sure. So we have entered office. I mean, we have won election for the first time back in 2010. And between 2010 and 2016, we were kind of working together, but I wouldn't say working together, working parallelly to the Democrat administration. And during those 6 years, that time Democrat administration made very open attempts to interfere into the domestic issues of Hungary. So a lot of types of pressure has been put on the Hungarian government, on the country itself. Maybe I can share a story with you. When I entered office, September 2014, I, of course, paid a visit to Washington, but I was not received by that time Secretary of State, but I was received by Assistant Secretary Victoria Nuland. And when we sat together around the table, she literally threw a two-pager document on the table between us and told me that if we comply with those expectations, then we can speak about enhancing the political relationship. If not, then, well, there will be no political relationship, basically. And I grabbed the paper, and there were, I don't know, like 15 points saying how we should change our own constitution, how we should change our own regulation on churches, how we should change our regulation on media, how we should change our regulation on constitutional court, and so on and so forth. And see, you know, these are domestic issues. These issues should be decided upon by the Hungarian government, the Hungarian parliament, members of which are elected by the Hungarian people. So such kind of a foreign interference is not acceptable in Hungary. And then we made this clear to that time American administration, and that was again followed by many attempts to interfere. There was a visa ban being put on Hungarian government officials, saying that the reason for that was corruption. Of course, it was not revealed who those government officials were, regardless of we asked quite many times, but there was a visa ban. Then that time American charge d'affaires took part openly on the rallies organized by opposition, putting it on Facebook, Twitter, whatever, saying that these were the celebration of democracy. When we have passed our new constitution, saying that, among others, that Hungary is proud of Christianity, Hungary considers Christianity as an important factor when it comes to our statehoodness. We put into constitution that marriage can be made between one man and one woman. So after this constitution has been passed in the Hungarian parliament, there was an enormous American pressure again. So until 2016, we have been under a pressure by that time administration. I think it was totally undigestible for them what we have been doing here in Hungary in the framework of a Christian democratic, patriotic, conservative policy. And then in 2016, of course, we were crossing fingers for the current president. And after he won election, basically everything changed. And I can tell you now in 2020, that the Hungarian-American bilateral relations have never been as good as they are currently. I can tell you that, that we really respect your president. For us, it was kind of fresh air when he was speaking about putting America first. You know, I was laughing at some of my European colleagues here, and I was especially laughing at the European liberal media, how much they were frustrated after President Trump speaking about America first. And I asked them, hey guys, what should the American president say? America is number what? If not number one, then what? Or what should the American president say? If not America is first, then what is first? But that was kind of a fresh air for us. And you know, countries here and governments here in Europe, which are patriotic, like the Polish, like ourselves, we felt deliberated to say Hungary first, Poland first, and so on and so on and so forth. And his willingness to protect his nation from illegal migration is encouraging to ourselves as well. Whenever the president speaks to our prime minister on the phone, they usually speak about the southern border, because you have to protect your southern border. We have to protect our southern border as well, because the illegal migratory flows on the land route are coming through Hungary to Europe.
Well, and Foreign Minister, could you tell me about what steps, what measures has Hungary taken to protect their borders?
Look, illegal migration is a huge challenge here in Europe since 2015. In 2015, there were hundreds of thousands of illegal migrants marching through the Western Balkans, arriving to the Hungarian border, violating it, marching through Hungary and leaving Hungary towards Austria, and then to Western and the northern part of Europe. You know, we made it very clear that the only way to cross our border is the legal way. And crossing our border illegally is a crime. And crossing our border illegally is an attack against the sovereignty of our country. But since some European politicians continue to invite and encourage these illegal migrants to come to Europe, we understood that the only way to protect our border is the physical way. So we have built a fence at our border, a very strong one, 3 lines of fence, you know, in order to protect ourselves. We have deployed army, we have deployed policemen there, They are on a 24/7 basis, patrolling the border. And this physical obstacle, meaning the fence on the entire border towards Serbia and to Croatia, has protected us. There are like dozens of attempts on a daily and weekly basis to come through. But the physical infrastructure and army and police is able and successful enough to protect us. And since there's the fence and since there's army and police, no illegal migrants can enter the territory of the country. This is very important because we preserve our own right to make a decision whom we allow to enter the territory of our country, whom not, and with whom we would like to live together and with whom not. And such kind of a decision is a national competence, and we will never allow anybody to take away the right of this decision from us.
And thank you very much for your answer. And I know that one topic that we actually spoke about at length, I think it was the first time that I did an interview with you, was the role of Hungary playing in defending Christians in the Middle East. And I know that's something that maybe people wouldn't really be aware of when they think of Hungary being a Central European country, but actually that Hungary actually does quite a bit for that. And so I was wondering if you could speak for that to us.
Look, our first Christian king has offered the country to the hands of Mary the Virgin a little bit more than 1,000 years ago. So since then, we consider ourselves as a Christian state. And as such, we really feel responsibility for those Christian communities around the world which are persecuted. And I think we Christians have to be brave enough to speak about the fact that currently the most persecuted religion on earth is the Christian religion and the Christian religious communities. If you look at the figures, you see that many Christians have to suffer from persecution on a daily basis. If you look at the number of Christian churches which are attacked or ruined on a weekly, monthly basis, you will get a huge number. And we Christians have to speak about it openly. To be honest and fair, I always admire some of my colleagues of Muslim faith who speak so openly and so emotionally when they speak about the need to protect their communities which are in need or which are under persecution. My question is why we Christians do not do the same. And I'm so frustrated when we, the European foreign ministers, come together once every month and we negotiate about situation in the Middle East. And I always raise the question, so let's make a statement on that we have to protect the Christian communities, and they are never ready to do so. At the end, the most I can reach is to speak about religious minorities, but I don't want to speak about religious minorities. I want to speak of the Christian communities. So as a Christian country, we feel responsibility, and we have launched a program which is called Hungary Helps. Hungary Helps program helps the Christians in the Middle East to be able to stay. Their bishops and archbishops came to us and told us, please do not encourage the members of Christian communities in the Middle East to leave, because if they leave their homes, then we contribute to the success of the terrorist organizations whose goal is to delete these Christian communities. So instead of encouraging them to leave, we have to help them to stay where their communities have been living for centuries or even longer, So that's why we are paying for the reconstruction of their churches. We are paying for the operation of their hospitals. We are paying for the reconstruction of their homes. We are paying for the reconstruction and operation of their schools, Just recently, we reconstructed 33 Maronite Christian churches in Lebanon. We have been financing the operation of the 3 biggest Christian hospitals in Syria. We have been financing a reconstruction of houses for more than 1,000 Christian families in Telskov. $70 million, that doesn't sound too much, but $70 million we spend directly. So, we do not send this money through international organizations or whatever. The bishops and archbishops come to Budapest. They tell us what kind of projects they need, and they give them the money directly. So we can be sure that 100% of the money is being utilized.
Now, oh, that's fantastic. I certainly commend you on that. Now, there is something that I did want to mention. So you're talking about some of these non-government organizations that operate in the international space. We've also seen in some cases, when you mentioned before, how Hungary was feeling pressure from a number of these organizations from the United States, from the West. And here at home in the United States now, the Trump administration and the Trump campaign are also starting to feel similar pressures coming from organizations and individuals that appear to have ties to these very same think tanks, these very same groups. There's this new organization called the Transition Integrity Project that has just become raised up in the United States, talking about an illegitimate election in 2020 and not abiding by the results of this election, if Trump is to win, coming in. And a lot of political thinkers have been looking at this and saying that this appears to be following some parallels to different things that have happened across Eastern Europe, which have been, and in some cases the Middle East, the Arab Spring, which have been referred to as color revolutions. And I understand that you know something about color revolutions. I want to know if you could speak to that to us a little bit, and what are your perspectives on this situation? Is this something that's real, or is it just people reading too much into things?
Well, what I see is that there is no more intolerant ideological, let's say, direction currently than the so-called liberal ideology. The liberals cannot digest that there are political ideologies or political directions which consider patriotism, nation, religion, history important. They just cannot digest it. I understand that this international liberal mainstream cannot digest, or could not digest, and still is not able to digest, that in 2016, the candidate of the liberal mainstream was beaten by a patriotic candidate. They tried everything. I remember reports of CNN. The funniest was that, like, a couple of hours after the result was obvious, and then they have shown a survey which said that like 55 or 6, I don't know, so majority of American citizens are not happy with the outcome of elections. But come on, election took place, and the President Trump won on an election. So liberals consider a political system democratic as long as they govern. But as long as immediately after they lose, immediately after someone else wins, they consider the whole system non-democratic. So they are absolutely intolerant. They speak about the need for tolerance, and as if they were very tolerant, but no, they are the most intolerant political ideology. Here in Hungary, as we have been running a patriotic policy as well, you cannot imagine the amount of attacks we are faced by bureaucrats in Brussels, by organizations financed by George Soros, by liberal media, by NGOs. And these NGOs call themselves non-governmental organizations, but basically they are political organizations because they want to influence the public will and the public opinion. And we know all these: Transparency International, Amnesty International, Freedom House, the Helsinki Commission. They are political tools, political equipment of the liberal ideological political forces. And they always want to put pressure on governments which are not liberal. I tell you a story, if you don't mind. Sure. Prime Minister Orban has had a speech a couple of years ago where he spoke about illiberal democracy. And you cannot imagine how many attacks we have received after that. But Prime Minister was speaking about the following: that immediately after liberals lose in a country, they immediately consider the political system as non-democratic. So in this regard, our democracy is illiberal because it's not the liberals to rule. And you know, we think democracy is a democracy. You don't need other words in front of it. Why would democracy necessarily be a liberal democracy? Why don't we speak about a national democracy, a Christian democracy, a patriotic democracy? So I really feel that similar kind of attacks are being put on President Trump, like us, like the Polish government. Of course, the dimensions and sizes are totally different, but we really feel sympathy and solidarity with you in this regard.
All right. Now, I want to turn it over soon to be able to start asking the audience for questions. So we do have a lot of people watching and a lot of questions are starting to come in. I would like to encourage everyone, whether you're watching on Facebook, Periscope, wherever you're watching, please go ahead, send in those comments, those questions, and we'll get to as many of them as we have time for. But before I do that, Foreign Minister, you just mentioned about President Trump. Now, as you know, of course, President Trump is currently in the hospital. He has contracted COVID-19. He is under strict diagnosis. He's being tested regularly. We are hearing more and more about his status, but I wanted to know if the government of Hungary has any specific formal wishes that they'd like to send to him.
Well, look, we very much regretted when we came to know about President Trump having the coronavirus and being delivered to a hospital. So we wish him a very quick recovery, to come back to the battlefield as soon as possible, to come back to the campaign as soon as possible. We understand it's only a month to go, and his charisma, his involvement in the campaign is absolutely necessary to encourage the people to go to vote, to help him to continue. So we cross fingers, and we really do hope that he is gonna recover soon. And of course, the same good wishes are going to the First Lady of the United States.
Thank you very much. All right, first question I'd like to go, it's Ryan Hurley from the Iowa State University College Republicans. Ryan.
Hello, I'd just like to thank you both for being here. It's been great so far, but my question is, Hungary has implemented a lot of family first policies that help the families. I was wondering if you could go a little bit into depth about how they've been helping Hungarian families, what they were essentially. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the question. Yes, families are in the focus point of our thinking and of our policies. When we came into office back in 2010, Hungary was in a very, very poor economic shape. And then we decided to delete the progressive tax system. We have introduced the flat tax, 15% on personal income and then 9% on corporate income. And we made clear that that the decision of a family, whether to have a kid or more kids, cannot be a pure economic decision. And it cannot happen that those who decide to have children will get into a more disadvantageous situation compared to those who decide not to have children. So our fertility rate was down to 1.25, now it's about 1.4. Of course, it's a matter of taste, whether we could have gone quicker, but this is reality. We have increased it relatively a lot, and we continue to do so. We give significant tax exemption for families based on the number of kids. If you earn around the average, then basically, if you have 3 or more kids, you do not have to pay any kind of personal income tax at all. We have allowed for ladies, mothers who have worked for 40 years to go into pension. There is free kindergarten, free elementary school, and free meal in the kindergarten, free meal for the most of the elementary school students, free books for the elementary school students, because we want to make sure that having a kid will not put an unbearable burden on the shoulders of the families. So in every parts of life, we give incentive to buy cars with 7 passengers, you know. So there's an incentive on that. We give a preferential loan to families if they buy a house or flat, and the paying back is being suspended and postponed in case of birth of children. So every field of life, when it comes to housing and schooling, we give the maximum support to families.
All right, thank you very much. Just got a question here from Dominic Yabukovsky from Young Conservatives of Michigan. And he asked an interesting question. After the 2008 financial crisis, should conservatives, in your view, embrace policies such as banking reforms instead of free market fundamentalism?
Look, we do believe that President Trump is right when he says we need a free and fair global economy. And you know, you have to know that Hungary, or you can know, you know, Hungary is among the 10 most open economies of the world. So we are pretty much depending on exports. 85.6% is the ratio of exports over GDP. We are pretty much dependent on a free and fair global trade. On the other hand, we made it very clear that that part of the strategic industries and strategic areas of economy should be nationally owned. And I want to underline nationally, not state-owned, nationally owned. So in case of a banking sector, energy, retail, telecommunication is at least partly nationally owned, then you can feel more in safety. And yes, banking sector should be regulated in a proper manner, and it should be made sure that everybody complies with the regulations.
All right. Next question comes in from Facebook, Alfred Tong. Interesting question. He asks, there's about 2 to 3 million Hungarians living in other countries than Hungary throughout Europe. This is because of the different border changes throughout the years, different emigration that's happened, and especially since Hungary's entry into the EU. And in addition to the family policies that Hungary is enacting, is the Hungarian government looking into the possibility of offering repatriation for Hungarians throughout the EU or other areas to help with the population?
Look, the situation is the following. 2/3 of the territories of Hungary have been taken away after the First and then the Second World War. So this means that millions of Hungarians are living now in the neighboring countries. And we look at these communities, which are sources of strength, because if the government of the neighboring country is rational enough, then we can look at these communities as bridges between the two countries. Now, in some cases, we have that approach. In some cases, unfortunately not. So, for example, we have a historically good relations now with Serbia. We have good relations with Slovenia, Croatia, Slovakia. But our relationship is on the depth with Ukraine, and then we have some challenges with Romania as well. So, yes, these communities living outside of the border are very important for us. But our policy is that we have to help them to be strong where they are living. So it is absolutely not our goal to to delete these communities and get them on the move. To the contrary, we want to help them to be successful where they have been living. So we are running economic development policies. in the framework of which we support their small and medium enterprises, we support their investments, we support their developments, we finance the operation of Hungarian schools, finance the operation of Hungarian cultural institutions, finance or take part in financing of the church institutions on the other side of the border, in order to help our national communities to become strong and to be able to stay where they had been living. So of course they don't want to give up their life which they have been living there. You know, we have the institution which is called the dual citizenship. So we have offered Hungarian citizenship to all those who have a Hungarian origin but are living on the territories of the neighboring country or wherever else. You know, there are many Hungarians living in the United States. You say rightly that after the 1956 revolution, many Hungarians had to leave the country because of the Soviets came in and occupied the country basically. You know, there are many unfair comparisons currently in Europe saying that a nation like Hungarian, how can we be anti-migration, putting into consideration those tens of thousands who have left the country after 1956 and found a second home. But you know, there's a big difference. Those Hungarians who had to leave the country in 1956 were not aggressive illegal migrants. They all fled to the territory of Austria, which is a neighboring country, staying there in refugee camps, waiting for countries to accept them. So United States, Canada, others made it clear how many they would accept, and then certain number of Hungarians left Austria to go to countries which made the decision to receive them. They have not violated borders, they have not behaved aggressively, they had not attacked police where they were, they had not violated regulations, and so on and so forth. We are a nation which is a nation of freedom fighters. That's not a question, and we are very proud on the heritage of 1956, and we are very proud of all those who found a second home and contributed to the success of the country where they have been living. So many Hungarians living on the territory of the United States have contributed to the success of US in many ways.
Thank you very much. That's an important question, and obviously a very complex one, given all of the changes in the past years. Next question comes in, going back a little bit to a topic before. So it comes in from Tim Katona from Facebook again. He's asking, what tactics can be used by patriots who are experiencing a color revolution, whether it be Hungary, the United States, or another country?
You know, I think we should not be mistaken when we look at the compass. And the compass should be the will of our people. And the compass should not be liberal media or liberal NGOs. We do not have to satisfy them. You know, Hungary has an exceptional situation here in Europe, as we have a very stable political system. We have won the last 3 elections in 2010, 14, and 18 with a big margin. We are having 2/3 of the seats in parliament on our own, no coalition. So we can afford to be honest, to be straightforward. We don't have to hide our position. We don't have to think what media would think about what we say. We don't have to think about what liberal mainstream will say about what we think. We don't have to think about what coalition partners will say. And I see all my European colleagues, you know, who cannot say what they want. They cannot say what their opinion is because they are afraid of what media will say, what the liberals will say, what coalition partners will say, and so on and so forth. So I think what we patriots have to do is to keep it clear for ourselves that there's only one thing what matters, and this is what the people think about us, what the people expect from us, and what the people want us to do. And we have to see whether the people are satisfied. And we should not be take into consideration what some liberal mainstream media says or writes about us. I mean, CNN can can circulate fake news. international media outlets can circulate fake news. But as long as the people like what we are doing, and as long as the people vote in favor of us, and as long as we can comply or complete what the people expect from us, we are fine. And we have to be aware of this.
So actually, I have another question that kind of ties in very well with that. And they ask, so when it comes to sources for people, and this is coming in from Pennsylvania, a guy, Sean in Pennsylvania on Periscope, how can we find, as Americans, information about the Hungarian people, about what they think, what sources can be trusted coming out of Hungary?
Yeah, it's a very important and very tricky question. Not the question itself is tricky, but the situation based on which this question has been raised. Because if I was a foreigner and not a Hungarian, and if I wanted to know something about Hungary, and if I looked at international media, I would say, "Oh my God, what's going on in Hungary?" You know, because media coverage, liberal media coverage about Hungary is very negative. I think we are competitive to the liberal media coverage of President Trump.
Well, I don't know. That's pretty high bar. It's pretty high.
Yeah, well, it's challenging, of course. I understand, but dimensions are different. Dimensions are different. So we are under continuous attack by liberal media as well, and we are portrayed as devils and the worst dictators who happen to live on earth all times. And you know, here in Hungary, what I can tell you is that all media sectors, so internet, radio, weekly, daily newspapers, the number one media outlets on all sectors are liberal ones and heavily against the government. But there's a relatively strong part of media which is fair, correct, and which is kind of supportive to what we have been doing. And you know, liberal mainstream cannot digest that either. They cannot digest that there are media outlets who are not by DNA against what we have been doing. And you know, that's another thing what we have to be aware, that liberal media thinks that media freedom means to be liberal and go against patriotism, go against conservatives, go against Christian Democrats. And immediately after a media happens to be supportive to a Christian democratic policy, they immediately accuse that media outlet by being, you know, a servant to government. So they consider media free as long as it's liberal. And we have to fight that approach. And we have to make it clear that that journalists, even journalists, do have the right to think freely and write freely about what they think, for example, about a government. So there are definitely media outlets who are supportive to us, and I have to tell you that in the news and in the reports of those media outlets, President Trump enjoys a very good reputation as well. So I told some colleagues in White House that if they need any kind of reference to international media which is positive about President Trump, they should refer to some, let's say, right-leaning parts of conservative parts of Hungarian media.
And it seems that way in the United States as well. You can find more accurate reporting from independents in many cases than some of the corporate outlets out there. Now, I wanted to bring also on another college Republican, and I think we can actually get him on, I think by audio here. And it's Ian Harrison, and he's coming in from Santa Clara University College Republicans. He has a question about immigration.
Yeah, hey there. My name's Owen Harrison from Santa Clara University College Republicans. I had a question. It was about immigration. It was about Hungary's border. I was wondering how Hungary having a strict immigration policy benefited them as opposed to other European countries during the migrant crisis, and how you think the United States could emulate something similar to better protect our heritage and our history.
Well, thank you very much for your question. This has been the major issue here in Europe for 5 years now. Back in 2015, when the first migration crisis has hit the continent, then both the European institutions in Brussels and some governments and political leaders of big Western European countries have encouraged people to come to Europe. And you know, this was a very aggressive crowd. Mainly consisting of men between the age of 25 and 45. Most of them, I guess, served in some kind of an army or a military service. They were very aggressive. They did not take care about the regulations and laws and our culture and our way of behavior. They have attacked our police. They were not ready to go to the designated refugee camps. They rejected any kind of cooperation. They occupied public areas. You know, they blocked the railroads. They blocked the highways because they said that they want to go to Germany, they want to go to Austria. But then the tricky thing was that after they got to Germany, Austria, Sweden, wherever, if it turned out that they are not eligible for asylum, then these countries wanted to send them back to us, regardless of the fact that they encouraged them to go. So that's why we said, okay, this is a no-go for us. We want to preserve our own right to make our own decision with whom we would like to live together. Our country is a Hungarian country, is a Christian country, and we do not want to change any of these two aspects. And simply, we have a right to that. We have a right to make a decision that we would like to remain a Hungarian country. And we would like to remain a country which is based on Christian culture. And once again, I want to underline, we have the right to keep this. And that's why we made it clear that we locked the border. We did not allow since then anybody to come through illegally. May I tell you another story, if you don't mind? Especially that CNN played an important role in that. Right after we have built the fence and traffickers and the illegal migrants both understood that there's no way to come through, they started to attack one of the border crossing stations. Hungarian police was there, but migrants were throwing stones, pieces of concrete, what they found, bottles, for hours on the Hungarian police. And then after like 1.5, 2 hours of, not responding, Hungarian police decided to respond with water cannons, which is not the most, let's say, cruel way of responding of such an attack. And then CNN and all other international liberal media outlets have reported that the cruel Hungarian police attacked innocent refugees, mostly, of course, women and children, without any reason. And then as a country, how can you fight that? How can you fight that? So, and then after this, we have captured and put in front of court and jail the leader of this attack, who was throwing the stones, who was using a loudspeaker to instruct the crowd there. And afterwards, European Parliament in Brussels and Strasbourg announced or passed a resolution saying that how anti-democratic we are, that we have put this leader of the attack into jail and onto court. And they said, okay, he had been throwing objects towards the police, but he just made it in favor of cooling down the tension. So, I mean, and you don't know whether to cry or laugh about that. But you shouldn't laugh because it's the European Parliament. It's a serious institution.
Supposedly, right? Yeah, of course. I understand, Foreign Minister, that I don't want to keep you any longer. We're already way longer than the time that they had said that you would have for today. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for giving us your time, for being here, speaking to young conservatives, young Republicans here in the United States, sending your well wishes for our president while he is hospitalized. Is there anything else that you'd like to add before you sign off for today?
Well, first of all, I'd like to express my appreciation to you. To Mark and to you, Jack, to have me here. It is really my great honor. We Hungarians in government are pretty fed up with those who want to interfere into domestic issues of ours, who want to lecture us, who want to tell us Hungarians how we should live in Hungary, who think that they know better how to be a good Hungarian compared to us Hungarians. That's why I definitely do not want to interfere into domestic issues of the United States. So that's why I can formulate my statement only from the perspective of the Hungarian-American bilateral relations. And I want to tell you that I myself personally, and we here, many here in Hungary, we cross fingers for President Trump first to recover and then win the elections. Simply because we have a experience from times when there was a Democrat administration, and we have an experience from a time when there has been a Republican White House. And currently we have the best political relationship ever. And we really would like to continue that. And we enjoy the situation that the President of the United States and Prime Minister of Hungary has a similar kind of approach to the major dilemmas of global politics. When it comes to patriotism, protecting Christian communities, protecting your own nation, protecting your security, protecting your borders. So we enjoy this relationship, we enjoy this cooperation. And we don't want this cooperation come to its end. So we cross fingers for you, Republicans. I would like to ask young Republican fellows to help the campaign and help the president win again. And I hope to continue this very good cooperation with you. So that was my honor to be here with you, and I hope that was not too boring to the audience who honored us by joining tonight here in Hungary, this afternoon in the United States.
Thank you so much, Foreign Minister. And I appreciate as well the opportunity to be able to speak. Jack Posobiec from One American News. Turn it back over to Mark Ivano.
Appreciate it, Jack. That was amazing. I hope you all enjoyed that as much as I did. It's been an absolute pleasure and honor to have Foreign Minister Szijjarto with us today. I'd like to extend a big thank you on behalf of Republicans for National Renewal to Foreign Minister Szijjarto for participating in this event, all the staff at the Hungarian Embassy to the United States, the Foreign Ministry in Budapest for helping arrange this. Also, a big thank you to Mr. Jack Posobiec for his willingness to guest host and moderate this discussion. We really appreciate it. For any follow-up media inquiries surrounding this event, you can email me at Ivanyo, that's IVANYO, at rnrenewal.org. If you missed anything or you showed up late, the full video will be up on Facebook and YouTube shortly. Also, be sure to check out our website for periodic updates at rnrenewal.org, along with other information like our scorecard. We're planning to have future online events like this in the coming months, as well as in-person events in the Washington, New York, Detroit, South Florida metropolitan areas. For more information on that, I'd once again encourage you all to like our Facebook page. Please follow us on Twitter at RNRenewal. And thanks again for tuning in. If Jack has something else to say, go ahead. And we hope to see you all at the next event. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you so much. Nope, just say prayers for everybody and certainly prayers for our president and for our country.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
God bless.
God bless.